The market was alive with noise, colors, and smells, but not all eyes were on the shining stalls. In the corner of the street where shadows touched the dirt, a girl crawled on her knees. Her skin was pale, her hair tangled, and her clothes torn into rags. She was not walking proudly like the others. She was on the ground, her hands digging through scraps of rotten food thrown by careless traders. The merchants laughed when they saw her. "Look at that creature," one said, tossing a bone at her feet. "Crawling like an animal." Children giggled, throwing small stones. Some spat at her. Others pointed, whispering, "She must be cursed." The girl did not fight back. She did not even lift her head. She picked up the scraps, ate slowly, and kept crawling. Her silence made her look weaker, but there was something strange about her face, something hidden beneath the dirt. Among the crowd stood a human traveler. He had come to this alien world only to trade and move on, yet now his eyes froze on the crawling girl. Something about her did not fit the scene. The way her shoulders moved, the way she lowered her eyes, it was not like a beggar's shame. It was something else, something heavier. He stepped closer, the crowd ignored him. They thought he was just another foreigner curious about the crawling alien. But the human did not laugh. He crouched near her, opening his bag. He pulled out a piece of bread, still warm, and held it out. The girl hesitated. Her trembling hands reached forward but stopped halfway, as if she feared a trick. "It's food," the human said softly, his voice calm and kind. Slowly, she took the bread. For a moment, her eyes lifted, meeting his. They were not the eyes of a street rat. They were sharp, bright, and filled with something she was hiding, something she had buried deep. The human's chest tightened. He had seen those eyes before, not on beggars, but on rulers. The girl ate the bread quickly, but as she did, her sleeve slipped. A faint mark glowed on her arm, hidden under layers of dirt. It was not a tattoo. It was not a scar. It was a crest, an emblem burned into her skin with royal precision. The human's heart skipped. He knew enough about alien politics to understand what that meant. Only high blood carried such marks. Only nobility. Why would a duchess crawl in the dirt for scraps? He quickly looked around, making sure no one else had noticed. But he was too late. A pair of sharp eyes in the crowd had already caught the glimpse. A cloaked figure melted back into the shadows, leaving quietly. The human's instinct screamed, "Danger." The girl finished the bread, licking her dry lips. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. Why help me?" The human wanted to answer, but he stopped himself. He could not explain the storm rising inside him. He only said, "Because someone should." The market noise swelled again. Traders shouted prices, guards barked orders, and no one seemed to care about the girl or the human beside her. Yet in that moment, the human felt the ground shift. This was not just an act of kindness. This was the beginning of something dangerous. The girl looked down again, crawling toward another pile of waste, but the human could not take his eyes off the crest. If he had seen it, others would too, and others would not be kind. He stood scanning the alleys. A group of men lingered too long near the fruit stalls. Their gazes flicked between the girl and each other. They whispered, then disappeared into the shadows. The human tightened his bag strap. His gut told him he had just stepped into a web far larger than he understood. The girl, weak and hungry, did not notice. She kept crawling, picking at scraps, trying to stay invisible, but she was not invisible anymore. Not to him, not to those who had seen the crest. The human crouched again and whispered, "Stay close to me." She flinched. "Why?" "Because they've already seen you." Her eyes widened. She turned, following his gaze toward the alleys. Fear washed over her face, but under that fear, the human noticed something else. Shame, and the weight of secrets too heavy for someone so young. The crowd's laughter had stopped. Whispers spread now. Some pointed at her arm. Some murmured old names, names of houses long thought broken. The human realized this girl was not just a beggar. She was a key, maybe to power, maybe to bloodshed. But before he could think more, the cloaked men returned, moving closer, their hands hidden under their robes. The human had a choice: walk away and stay safe, or stay with her and invite danger. His hand moved to the small blade hidden at his belt. The girl looked at him, her lips trembling. "Please, don't leave me." And in that moment he knew he couldn't. The dirt and the shadows were no longer just her prison. They had become his battlefield. The market, once noisy and bright, now felt darker. Suspense thickened in the air. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rang, and the human knew one thing. This day was about to change everything. The human walked quickly through the narrow street, his eyes scanning every shadow. Behind him, the girl followed, her bare feet dragging on the stones. She was weak, but she tried to keep up. The bread he had given her was the first real food she had eaten in days, maybe weeks, yet her strength had not returned. Every corner of the market seemed alive with eyes. Traders leaned forward, guards stopped their patrols, and strangers whispered. The human knew what it meant. They had seen the crest. He slowed for a moment, letting the girl walk beside him. Her sleeve had slipped again, revealing the faint emblem on her arm. He pulled the cloth back down quickly. Hide it, he whispered. The girl frowned. Why? Because that mark is not for beggars. That's a royal crest. Someone will kill you for it or sell you. Her eyes widened and she clutched her arm. I didn't want anyone to know. The human gave a short nod. Too late now. They've seen. As if to prove his words, a man stepped out from a side alley, blocking their path. His face was scarred, his smile thin. Behind him, two more appeared, carrying short blades. Well, the scarred man said, his eyes fixed on the girl. The dirt rat wears a duchess's mark. Looks like we're rich today. The girl froze, trembling. The human stepped forward, placing himself between her and the men. Back off, he said, his voice calm but firm. The scarred man laughed. And who are you? A human traitor? You think this is your fight? The human didn't answer. His hand rested on his belt near his blade. The men moved closer, their boots crunching against the dust. The girl pulled on the human's sleeve. Please, she whispered. Don't fight them. You don't understand. Then explain, he whispered back. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting around as if afraid of her own words. I was born in the house of Serath. My father was a duke. My family was betrayed, hunted, slaughtered. They burned our crest into my skin before the end so no one would forget who I was. Her voice cracked. But that mark is a curse. If they know I live, they will kill me to finish the job. The human's jaw tightened. Betrayal, murder, a bloodline wiped out. And yet here she stood, crawling in dirt like an animal to stay alive. The scarred man lifted his blade. Enough talking. Hand her over. The human's mind raced. He was outnumbered. But he had one advantage. None of them expected him to fight. Humans in their eyes were weak traitors, not warriors. He smiled faintly. You'll have to take her. And before the men could react, he moved. His blade flashed from his belt, striking the first man's hand. The weapon clattered to the ground. The second lunged forward, but the human sidestepped, slamming his elbow into the attacker's jaw. The third stumbled back, shocked. The market froze. People gasped, watching a lone human fight three hunters. The scarred man snarled, clutching his bleeding hand. You'll regret this. The human grabbed the girl's wrist. Run! They dashed down the alley, weaving through crates and barrels. Behind them, the hunter shouted, chasing with fury. The girl's breath came in ragged gasps, but she ran, clutching her arm where the crest burned under her skin. At last, they ducked into a broken doorway, hiding in the shadows. The human pressed her against the wall, his hand covering her mouth to keep her quiet. The hunters passed by, their footsteps echoing. When the noise faded, he let her go. She slid to the floor, shaking. You shouldn't have helped me, she whispered. Now they'll hunt you too. The human crouched, his eyes steady. I couldn't walk away. You're not just some beggar. You're something more, and I need to know why fate put you in my path. Tears welled in her eyes, but she forced herself to speak. If I tell you the truth, you'll leave. Everyone leaves. He shook his head. Try me, she drew a deep breath. I am Lyra Serath, last daughter of the Serath bloodline. My father's enemies destroyed us. I escaped only because I was hidden as the palace burned. Since then, I've lived as nothing, as no one. If the council learns I live, war will begin again. The human leaned back, stunned. A duchess hidden in rags, crawling for scraps. Her very existence was a secret that could tear the city apart. Lyra wiped her face with a dirty hand. Do you understand now? If you stay near me, they'll kill you too. But instead of leaving, the human smiled. Then we'll have to make sure they don't find us. Her eyes widened. Why would you? Because I've seen beggars, slaves, and liars. You're none of those. You carry yourself like someone who once wore silk, not rags, and someone should remind you of that. Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time in years, someone had not seen her as a curse or a prize, but as a person. Before she could reply, a shadow moved across the doorway. Voices whispered. The hunters were back. The human pulled her to her feet. His blade was already in his hand. We run again. But this time we run smart. Lyra nodded, fear and hope clashing in her eyes. She clutched his arm, and together they slipped deeper into the ruins of the city. Behind them, the hunters swore oaths of blood. The mark of Serath had been seen. The lost Duchess was alive. And now the hunt would not stop until either she was dead, or the human was. The market did not forget quickly. By the next morning, the whispers had already spread like fire. Did you hear? A girl with the crest of Serath has been seen. They say she was crawling in the dirt like a rat. No, she was protected by a human. A strange human, not afraid of blades. Every trader, every beggar, every guard spoke of it. The human and the girl had disappeared into the night, but their names now lived in the mouths of strangers. In the corner of a tea shop, two cloaked men leaned close together. If it is true, the Duchess lives. If she lives, the war is not finished. Their eyes burned with greed. The council will pay gold for her head. At the city gates, guards whispered to each other. A foreigner, a human, was seen fighting 3 hunters. They say he drew blood and vanished with the girl. One guard spat on the ground. Humans should not interfere in our affairs. The human, however, was not listening to the market. He was hiding with the girl, Lyra, in the broken ruins at the edge of the city. The roof above them was cracked, sunlight slipping through in thin golden lines. Dust filled the air. The girl sat against the wall, hugging her knees. She looked smaller than ever, her hair covering her face. The mark on her arm glowed faintly in the dim light. The human crouched nearby, sharpening his small blade with a piece of stone. His eyes kept moving to the doorway. He could feel it. Eyes searching, ears listening, enemies growing. You can't stay here, he said finally. Lyra lifted her head, her voice weak. Where would I go? Every door is closed to me. Every face turns away. You'll die if you stay, he said, not unkindly. The whispers are louder than walls. Soon the hunters won't be the only ones looking. Her lips trembled. I should never have taken the bread. If you had ignored me, you would be safe. Now you are cursed too. The human stopped sharpening and looked at her. I don't regret giving you food, and I don't regret fighting for you. Her eyes filled with tears, but she wiped them quickly, ashamed. You don't understand. My blood is poison. Anyone near me suffers. Before he could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed outside the ruin. The human motioned for silence, pulling Lyra deeper into the shadows. Through the cracks in the wall, he saw 3 figures stop near the doorway. Word is she's here, one of them whispered. The rat Duchess and her human pet. The human clenched his jaw. Already the whispers had become knives. The men moved on, but the danger was clear. They were being hunted not only by hired blades, but by greed itself. When the night came, the market turned darker. Torches lit the streets, and secret deals were made in every corner. A merchant told a guard, if you find her, don't kill her yet. Deliver her to me. The council will pay double. Another voice in the shadows hissed, if the Duchess rises again, the clans will bleed. Better to enter now. Whispers turned to plans, and plans turned to traps. Meanwhile, in the ruins, the human and Lyra shared silence. He had given her half of his dried rations, though his own stomach growled. She ate slowly, her eyes never leaving him. Why? She asked softly. Why risk yourself for me? The human leaned back against the wall. Because I've seen beggars before. I've seen thieves, liars, and slaves. You're none of those. You crawl in dirt. But you carry yourself like someone who once stood tall. That doesn't fade. Not even in the shadows, Lyra lowered her gaze. Once I stood tall. Once my halls were filled with music, and my father's hand rested on my shoulder. Then fire came. Betrayal came. Now all that remains is dirt. Her voice cracked, and she buried her face in her hands. The human placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Dirt can be washed away. Shadows don't last forever. Her eyes flicked up, glistening. For a heartbeat, she almost believed him. But outside, the whispers thickened. The next morning, the human woke to the sound of horns. From the ruins, he could see guards marching in the distance, their banners snapping in the wind. Notices were nailed to the walls. Reward for information on the human foreigner and the girl with the mark. The hunt was no longer secret. It was open. Lyra's face turned pale. They know. Everyone knows. The human strapped his bag across his shoulder. Then we move. We can't hide in ruins anymore. Where will we go? She asked, her voice shaking. He paused, scanning the horizon. The city walls stood tall, but beyond them stretched wild lands, dangerous but free of whispers. Far, he said, farther than their lies can reach. But before they could move, a voice called from the shadows of the ruins. Well, well, look what I've found. The scarred man from the market stepped forward, blade in hand, his smile cruel. Behind him, more hunters emerged, surrounding the doorway. You can't run forever, human, he sneered. And you, little duchess. The council will pay a mountain of gold for your head, dead or alive. Lyra clutched the human's arm, her breath quickening. The human raised his blade, eyes cold. Then you'll have to earn that gold. The whispers had found them. Now the shadows would bleed. The ruin walls trembled with footsteps. Hunters closed in, their shadows stretching long under the moonlight. The human tightened his grip on the blade, placing himself between Lyra and the scarred man who blocked the doorway. You can't win, the scarred man hissed. There are too many of us. Step aside, human. This girl is worth more than your life. The human's eyes narrowed. Then you'll find out how much my life costs. Before the scarred man could laugh, the human lunged. His blade flashed, catching the man off guard. The hunters behind him rushed forward, but the human kicked over a broken pillar, forcing them back for a moment. Dust filled the air, and in that heartbeat he pulled Lyra's hand. Run! They bolted through a side gap in the ruins, stones cutting at their feet. Lyra stumbled, but the human dragged her onward. Behind them, shouts erupted. Don't let them escape! The chase had begun. The narrow streets of the lower city twisted like a maze. Lanterns swayed in the night breeze, their dim light making every shadow look alive. Lyra's breath came in short gasps, but the human never slowed. He knew if they stopped even for a moment, they would be caught. Faster, he urged, pulling her along. I can't, she whispered, her legs shaking. You can, he said firmly. You must. They dashed past shuttered doors and frightened faces peeking through cracks. Some whispered, the Duchess. Others quickly closed their windows. No one dared to help. The hunters followed like wolves, their boots striking stone, their torches burning. The scarred man's voice rang out. Alive if possible. Dead if not. The human turned a corner, leading Lyra into a weaving alley filled with laundry lines and crates. He shoved a cart over, spilling fruit across the ground. The hunter slipped, cursing, but kept coming. Lyra's chest burned, her body weak from hunger and years of living in dirt. Yet something inside her refused to give up. Each step, though painful, carried the weight of her bloodline. She was not just a beggar anymore. She was running like someone who had something to protect. The human noticed it too. That's it, he said. Keep moving. Don't stop. They reached an open square, silent and eerie at night. The fountain in the center no longer poured water. Only dry stone stood under the moonlight. The human pulled her behind it, crouching low. For a moment, silence returned. Lyra leaned against the fountain, clutching her chest. Why do you help me still? You should have left me. The human looked at her, his breath heavy but his eyes steady. Because if I leave you, they win. And I don't let men like that win. Her lips trembled, but she nodded. The silence broke. Torches lit the edges of the square. The hunters had caught up, surrounding the fountain. Their blades glinted in the light, their faces twisted with hunger for gold. The human muttered under his breath. Too many. He scanned quickly, alleys blocked, roofs too high to climb, trapped. Lyra's eyes filled with fear. We can't escape. He gripped her arm, steady. There's always a way. The scarred man stepped forward, smiling like a predator. You run well, human. But the game ends here. The human took a step forward, placing himself in front of Lyra again. His blade caught the torchlight. You're right. The game ends, but not how you think. Then he moved. The first hunter charged, but the human ducked low, sweeping his leg and slamming him into the ground. He grabbed the fallen torch and swung it wide, forcing the others back. Flames snapped in the night air, casting wild shadows across the square. Now, he shouted to Lyra. Lyra's eyes widened, but she understood. She scrambled to her feet and darted toward a narrow crack between buildings. The human followed, torch in one hand, blade in the other. The hunters swarmed, but the flame kept them cautious. They squeezed through the crack, emerging into another street. The human tossed the torch into a pile of crates behind them, setting it ablaze. The flames roared, blocking the path. The hunters cursed, their shouts fading behind fire and smoke. The human and Lyra stumbled forward, coughing from the smoke, but alive. For a few precious moments, Silence returned. The only sound was their pounding hearts. They stopped under a broken archway, the night wind cooling their sweat. Lyra fell to her knees, gasping. I can't do this anymore. The human crouched beside her, gripping her shoulders. Listen to me. You are not dirt. You are not scraps. You are Lyra Sarath, and if you stop now, they win. Do you understand? Her eyes filled with tears, but this time there was steel beneath them. Slowly she nodded. Before he could speak again, a sound cut through the night. A horn. Deep, long, and close. The human's blood went cold. They've called reinforcements. Lyra's face paled. More hunters? He shook his head. Worse. City guards. Torches lit up the distance, banners snapping in the wind. Soldiers, not just hunters, were moving now. The whispers of the market had grown into a roar, and the council itself had joined the chase. The human pulled Lyra up. This isn't just a hunt anymore. It's a war. And as they ran again deeper into the twisting heart of the city, both knew there was no turning back. The Duchess's secret was out. The chase had only begun. The human and Lyra moved through the night like shadows themselves. Their breaths came sharp, their bodies weary, but neither stopped. Behind them, horns echoed through the streets and boots hammered the stones. The city had turned into a cage, and its guards were closing in. They ducked into an abandoned courtyard, its stone walls cracked and overgrown with vines. The human pushed Lyra behind a collapsed pillar, listening for footsteps. For now there was silence. Lyra collapsed onto the ground, clutching her chest. Her thin frame shook with exhaustion. I can't run anymore, she whispered. The human knelt beside her. You don't have a choice. They'll never stop. Her eyes glistened in the moonlight. You don't understand. If they catch me, it won't just be my death. It will be war. He frowned, his voice low. Then tell me the truth, Lyra, all of it. No more half words. Who are you, really? Her lips trembled. For a moment she stayed silent, as if the weight of her past was too heavy to share. But at last she raised her head. I am Lyra Sarath, daughter of Duke Callan Sarath. My family ruled one of the oldest houses of this world. We were not kings, but our voice in the council was strong. Too strong. The others feared us. Her voice grew hoarse, thick with pain. So they betrayed us. My father was poisoned. My mother and brothers were burned alive in the palace. I was a child. I only lived because my nursemaid hid me in a basket of rags and sent me into the streets. The human's eyes darkened. He could see it now, the fire, the betrayal, the girl who should have grown in silk but instead crawled in dirt. They call me a duchess, Lyra whispered, but I am nothing. Just a shadow of a dead house. The human touched her arm gently. You are not nothing. That mark on your skin, that blood in your veins, it means you survived when they wanted you gone. That makes you dangerous to them, not weak. Her tears fell, hot and bitter. But I don't want to be dangerous. I don't want war. I only wanted to live quietly, to eat, to breathe. But they will never let me. Before he could answer, a stone clattered nearby. The human snapped his head toward the sound. 3 guards crept into the courtyard, swords drawn, their torches casting orange light. There, one shouted. The human pulled Lyra behind him, blade ready. Stay down. The first guard rushed, swinging wildly. The human ducked low, slamming his shoulder into the man's chest, knocking him flat. The second thrust forward, but the human parried, sparks flying as steel scraped steel. He twisted, kicking the guard back. The third hesitated, eyes flicking toward Lyra. Her crest glowed faintly under the torchlight. Recognition widened his eyes. The Duchess lives, he breathed. The human's heart pounded. If that guard escaped, the whole city would know by dawn. He lunged forward, disarming him with a swift strike, then drove his fist into the man's jaw. The guard collapsed, unconscious. The courtyard fell silent again, only the crackle of torches filling the air. The human dropped to his knees, his breath heavy. Lyra crawled toward him, clutching his sleeve. Why risk so much for me? You could have walked away 100 times, he met her eyes steady. Because I see more in you than they see. They see a prize. I see someone who deserves to stand again. And maybe, he added softly, maybe your story isn't finished. Her lips parted, but before she could speak, a horn blasted closer than ever. The human cursed under his breath. No time. He pulled her to her feet. We leave the city tonight. If we stay, we're dead. Lyra staggered beside him, but something inside her had shifted. The weight of her bloodline no longer crushed her completely. For the first time, she let herself believe she could be more than a beggar. As they moved through the back alleys, she spoke quietly. If I live, they will fear me. If I rise, they will call for war. My blood is the spark that can burn this world. The human glanced at her, his jaw tight. Then maybe it's time the world burns the right enemies. Her eyes widened at his words. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever stood with her against the weight of her curse. The moon slipped behind clouds, throwing the city into deeper darkness. Torches burned in the distance and voices carried through the streets. But in the shadows, the human and Lyra kept moving, two fugitives bound by fate. At last, they reached a broken gate at the edge of the city. Beyond it stretched the wild lands, forests thick and dangerous but free of soldiers. Lyra stared into the darkness, fear trembling in her voice. Out there the beast will hunt us, the human nodded. Better beasts than men who betray. For a moment silence fell between them. Then softly Lyra said, You asked who I am. Now you know. But tell me, human, why do you help me? What are you really? The human's eyes glinted in the moonlight. Just a traveler, but maybe the wrong kind of man to walk away from the right kind of fight. Lyra looked at him, her breath caught in her throat. In that moment she saw not just a protector but an ally she had never expected, a human who believed in her when she could not believe in herself. Behind them, horns still sounded. Ahead of them, the wild stretched wide and unknown, and in the middle of it all, the last Duchess of Sarath walked beside a human who had chosen her fate as his own. The night sky stretched wide above them as the human and Lyra left the city walls behind. The wild lands loomed ahead, dark forests, broken hills, and ancient ruins that whispered of forgotten ages. The horns of the guards grew distant, but the danger did not fade. The city had unleashed the hunt, and it would not stop until the Duchess was dead. The human led the way, his blade still at his side, his eyes scanning the shadows. Lyra stumbled on the uneven ground, but she kept moving. The dirt clung to her skin, her hair tangled like vines, yet her eyes held a strange fire now. She was no longer only a girl crawling in filth. She was someone rising step by step into what she truly was. By dawn, they reached a ruin hidden in the hills, a broken fortress, its towers shattered, its walls crumbled. Moss covered the stones and the air smelled of age. The human stopped, looking at the ruin. This place, he said, is defensible. If they catch us here, we can hold them off. Lyra's voice shook. Hold them off? There are too many. He gave a small smile. Sometimes one fight is enough to change the story. She wanted to protest, but something in his eyes silenced her. He was not afraid. He was steady, as if his path had already been chosen. They entered the ruin, the stones echoing under their steps. Broken arches reached toward the sky, and vines curled around the walls like green scars. It was a place forgotten by the world, yet it would soon witness something unforgettable. As the sun rose, dust swirled in the air. Then the sound came, boots striking stone, voices calling, blades clashing against shields. The hunters had followed, and not just hunters, guards too, dozens of them. The ruin became surrounded, Lyra's breath caught. There's no escape. The human stood tall, blade in hand. Then we don't escape. We make our stand. The first wave came charging through the broken gates. The human moved like water, fast, sharp, unyielding. His blade flashed, striking one down, then another. He fought with a strength they had never expected from a human. Every step he took was to shield Lyra, every strike a promise. You will not touch her while I stand. Lyra crouched behind the fallen stones, her heart pounding. She had seen warriors fight before, but never like this. This was not about glory or gold. This was about protection. About defiance, blood stained the ground. The hunters pulled back, regrouping. The scarred man stepped forward, his smile cruel. You fight well, human. But how long before your strength fades? How long before you fall? The human wiped the sweat from his brow, his eyes cold. Long enough? The scarred man laughed and waved his hand. More men surged forward, their blades gleaming. The human braced himself, but before they reached him, a voice cut through the ruin. Enough! The sound was not loud, but it carried like thunder. Everyone froze. Lyra had risen from behind the stones. Her hair fell wild around her face, her clothes torn, her skin bruised. Yet when she stepped into the sunlight, her presence shifted the air. The crest on her arm glowed bright, brighter than it ever had before. Gasps filled the ruin. The hunters stared, their torches flickering. Even the scarred man's grin faltered. She is truly Sarath, one whispered. Lyra's voice trembled, but she forced the words out. I am Lyra Sarath, last daughter of the house you betrayed. You burned my family. You hunted me like an animal, but you did not kill me. I live." Her voice grew stronger, carrying across the ruin. "And if I live, the blood of Sarath lives. That means your lies end here." The hunters shifted uneasily. Some lowered their blades. Others muttered in fear. The scarred man snarled, "Empty words. You're just a rat in rags." But even as he said it, doubt flickered in his eyes. Because in that moment, Lyra did not look like a beggar. She looked like a duchess, standing tall in ruins, her voice turning stone into fire. The human stepped beside her, blood on his blade, but a faint smile on his lips. "Told you," he whispered. "You were more than dirt." Lyra's eyes glistened, but she stood firm. The mark on her arm pulsed, glowing brighter with each heartbeat. It was as if the ruin itself recognized her blood. The scarred man lunged, blade raised. The human moved to block him, but Lyra lifted her hand. A sudden force rippled through the air, strange, ancient, alive. The scarred man was thrown back, crashing into the stones. Silence followed. The hunters stared in horror. "The Duchess? She has the gift." Lyra looked at her hand, shaking, then at the human. "I didn't know. I didn't know it was still in me." He gave a short nod. "Now you do." The ruin trembled with the weight of the moment. The girl who had crawled in dirt now stood as a duchess, her hidden power revealed, her enemies shaken. But outside the ruin, horns still sounded. More soldiers were coming. The war for Sarath's blood was not over. The human looked at Lyra, his blade ready again. This is only the beginning. And together, side by side, they faced the broken gate as new enemies poured in. The ruin shook with the roar of horns. Dust rained from broken arches as soldiers poured through the shattered gate. Their armor gleamed in the dawn light, their banners high, the council's symbol sharp against the sky. The human stood at the front, blade in his hand, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion. Beside him, Lyra stood tall, her hair wild, her clothes torn, but her crest glowing bright as if her blood itself had awakened. The soldiers halted for a moment, staring. The whispers of the market had reached them, but now the truth burned before their eyes. The girl in dirt was no beggar. She was a duchess. "Seize them!" The captain shouted. The soldiers charged, their boots thundering against the stone. The human gritted his teeth, raising his blade. But before he could step forward, Lyra moved. She lifted her arm, and the crest glowed with a brilliance that forced the soldiers to shield their eyes. A wave of energy burst outward, slamming into the front line, throwing them back like leaves in a storm. Gasps echoed through the ruin. Some soldiers stumbled, some dropped their weapons, and some simply froze. The scarred man, still alive but bruised, crawled to his knees. "No, it's not possible." "The Sarath bloodline was dead," Lyra's voice carried across the ruin, clear and strong. "You tried to kill us. You burned my family. But Sarath does not die so easily. I am Lyra Sarath, daughter of Duke Callan. By my blood, by my crest, I live. And if I live, your crimes are revealed." The soldiers hesitated. Many shifted uneasily, their loyalty cracking under her words. For years they had been told the Sarath house was gone. Yet here she was, alive, standing in the ruins like a flame against the dark. The human stepped beside her, his blade lowered but his stance unbroken. "You see her," he said to the soldiers. "You see what they tried to hide. Ask yourselves, who do you serve? The council of liars or the blood that refuses to die?" Silence stretched. A few soldiers lowered their swords. The scarred man screamed, his face twisted with rage. "She's a fraud. A rat in rags. Kill her!" But even his own hunters hesitated now. Fear and doubt filled their eyes. Lyra took a step forward, her shoulders squared. The sunlight caught her face, and in that light she no longer looked broken. She looked regal, as if the duchess inside her had finally stepped out of the dirt. "You called me a rat," she said, her voice like steel. "But I am your duchess, and I will not crawl anymore." The scarred man roared and charged. His blade rose high, but the human moved faster, blocking him with a strike that rang like thunder. The two clashed in the center of the ruin, steel against steel, sparks flying. The scarred man was strong, but desperation made him reckless. The human was tired, but purpose made him unbreakable. At last, with one swift movement, the human twisted the man's blade aside and drove his own into the ground beside his neck. The scarred man froze, trembling. The human's eyes burned into him. "This is where your hunt ends." The man collapsed, defeated. The soldiers and hunters stared in silence. Lyra stepped forward, standing over the broken enemy, her voice echoing through the ruin. You all saw me crawl in dirt. You all saw me beg. But now you see the truth. I am Serath. I am the blood you tried to erase. And I rise not because I'm strong, but because someone believed I was worth saving. Her eyes turned to the human, her voice softening. This human saw me when no one else did. He gave me bread when others gave me stones. He stood with me when all others turned away. Remember this day, not just as the return of Serath, but as the day a human showed you what loyalty means. The ruin fell silent. Then slowly soldiers knelt. Not all, but enough. One by one, blades lowered, banners dipped. The human sheathed his blade, his breath heavy. Looks like they believe you. Lyra's lips trembled, but she stood tall. They don't bow to me yet, but they will. And if they don't, then I will still stand. The sun broke through the clouds, lighting the ruin in gold. Lyra lifted her chin, her shadow long against the stones. No longer the girl crawling for scraps. No longer the beggar hiding in filth. She was the Duchess of Serath, reborn in ruins, her voice echoing like a promise. The human stood at her side, silent but steady. He did not need titles or crowns. His place was here, with her, as the one who had seen her worth when no one else dared. And so in the ruins of a fallen fortress, a duchess rose. The whispers of the market would spread again, but this time they would not speak of a beggar. They would speak of a duchess who survived and a human who fought for her, and together they would change everything.